We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
You got to have the why, and we know our why. So
You don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Millions and millions of people have done this already. You can get help, you can get a roadmap, you can save a lot of time, money, and frustration. Welcome to the Value Add Podcast with K&K.
Hey everybody, Value Add with K&K. Crystal and Kenny here. Just want to say thank you so much for the support, for listening, the comments, everything. Keep it up. We'll keep going as long as we can.
And if you like what you're listening to, like what you're watching, tell your friends about it, leave us a review, maybe even give us 5 stars.
We love those.
That's how we can grow and continue to bring you guys value and spread the word.
Thanks, guys. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Value Add with K&K. Today we have Mike Simpson, aka Mikey, aka my big brother, aka you'll never find him on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or anywhere. So give it up now. He's not on there.
That was quite an intro.
You like that?
That was.
Nice.
AKA,
Yeah.
AKA.
You'll
Yeah.
find me quick.
So Mike's my older brother. I think he's older by 5 years?
I don't know. How much older is he?
Are you 5 years older?
Stop
We
counting.
don't even know.
Yeah.
We don't even know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're not keeping track of that.
So he runs, a family business. I don't know how long it's been, but Island Queen, Biscayne, yacht charters. There's a restaurant. There's some storage stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. So Mike, thanks for coming in on your family vacation.
And maybe Mike can tell us about all the stuff that he does.
Yeah,
'cause-
tell us about the business, how long it's been in, how it started.
and
all
like
that
how
stuff.
many businesses and what you do.
Yeah.
So, we'll start back with Grandpa. Our main business is the sightseeing tour business out of Miami, Florida. And our grandfather started this business probably, I don't know the exact date, but it's probably somewhere 75 years ago, out of the same location that we're at now. The location today is called Bayside Marketplace, which is a big tourist mall downtown Miami. Back then it was called, a lot of people might know of it, the Pier 5. You see some of the famous pictures and posters they use all around the United States. Back then it was multiple different sightseeing companies. It wasn't the only one. And it kind of just went through transition over the years with the development of Miami from... there was a saying back in then was get out of Dodge after 5 o'clock. So
Yep.
it was a daytime business. After 5, you weren't around the park unless you maybe had an AK-47 and a bulletproof vest. And it's changed a lot. So downtown Miami grew over the years. Grandma and Grandpa sort of kind of handed it over to our aunt and uncles, and our mom and dad sort of, I guess, came up with a little partnership and ran it for a couple of years. At that point, when our parents stepped back out of it, and Bowie and Chuck, who are aunt and uncles, sort of took it over and ran it there, and it became pretty successful with the transition of downtown Miami. It went from that 5 o'clock out of Dodge to where it sort of turned into that 24-hour vibe. And a mall called Bayside Marketplace, which is a large tourist mall, has been there now for... It's over 20 years now.
It's right next door to the Heat Stadium.
Right
literally.
next to the Miami Arena, heart of
So if you know
downtown
where that
Miami. And one of the beauties of Bayside Marketplace, it's this open air atmosphere that's located right on a marina with live music, a lot of different vibes happening. And one of those special scenarios is the 24-hour liquor license that they've had, which is kind of a rare scenario. There is no... it's a 24-hour liquor license. On top of the liquor license is the whole mall. So everybody has their individual liquor license, but you're allowed to actually move around the facility with an alcoholic beverage.
That's cool.
Something you don't really hear about
No.
a lot
I know
of
that.
locations.
I never
So
even really...
if you go to a lot of different places, you have to pour your drink out or
Yep.
you have to go to the next one. So you're able to sort of navigate and mingle around the whole mall. So it added that little twist of vibe that just sort
like
of helped set
Vegas.
it apart.
It's kind of
Yeah.
Vegas.
So yeah, it's been over times, and then I've been involved in the business it's been since probably about 13 when I started doing circles around the bay on the weekends, hanging out with dad and uncle, kind of roaming downtown as a young kid. It was a different world back then, so I could hop on a bicycle at 13, 14 and sort of navigate my way around all the hotels in downtown Miami. And as I just kind of went through those couple of years through high school, aspects of life sort of happened amongst some of our family and just the way the business run. And I was able to become a larger player in managing and understand the business. And at that time, I wasn't necessarily just running the business. I was sort of managing and helping out in all of, a lot of different angles. I didn't necessarily wear one hat or wear all multiple hats. And day by day went by, I sort of realized where we had different voids and where we had a lot of potential to grow, where we can improve ourselves, where we were doing good things. And I was able to sit on the sidelines for years as a kid and watch that interaction. And thank goodness I had enough brains in my mind to sort of understand where in the future I could be a part of it. And it just so happened that I was able to become a partner of the business. And probably for the last good 15 years, I've been running the business as the managing partner, running the partner with basically silent partners. We do have a couple family members, another uncle that's in the business, has some ownership, but pretty much I oversee the entire operation. And you ask what the operations are. So we have a large sightseeing business. We have a private yacht side, which is what we do, the high-end private yachts. And we were joking around earlier, so anywhere from Dwayne Wade's birthday party to weddings, high-end corporate to, anything anybody wants to have on that yacht in Miami and sort of, at the highest level.
You've done it.
I'm sure you have some interesting stories. The way you're smiling.
A lot of
like,
good stories,
oh boy.
right? But, it's kind of like Vegas, too. It's an element of respect. It's somebody's evening on the water and the yacht, it's really their evening. And that's one of the things I've learned about this business is, to be successful and have that good reputation, the social media side of it or me running out and publicizing all that is not the best scenario for me. As far as who was on the yacht or what's happening on the yacht, sort of, what happens on the yacht stays on the yacht, right? So,
but that's actually true because I've heard what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas
a
lot. So.
The yacht's a little easier to sort of keep it encompassed.
That's a good point, though.
So we also have a restaurant right on the water called Trade Winds. We've had that for about almost 15 years now. We have a little cafe, all within Bayside Marketplace. We do have a little property outside of Bayside where we have some property on the water, and we have a few houses, single-family homes that are associated with the business that we rent out. But we do have tenants on the water. We're blessed to have a beautiful location on the Miami River, so we have our own boatyard. And also within that location, we have a number of different tenants that are mainly involved in the large seafood business, which is the commercialing lobsters, stone crabs, and commercialing fish. As they've gotten squeezed out with all development, I've made a great, sort of relationship with some of the larger guys that are very successful, and they've been great tenants. So we sort of work side by side within the property, and you don't have to babysit them maybe like in the apartment world, sort of say. So that aspect's pretty cool. We have a photo aspect to our business that we used to run in-house, but we sub that out now. So we have, basically every tourist and everybody that gets on the boats, it's that photo business. We employ, between all the business, probably somewhere around 250 employees.
Wow.
Part-time could be another 50, 60, depending on the season, depending on what's happening.
It's a lot of personalities to manage.
A lot of personalities. And I think that's probably been one of the biggest growing aspects for me is having to learn with the lack of common sense and dealing with those personalities. Is always a challenge. That's the way I grew up and the way my work ethics and motivation in life were. It sometimes you have to take that deep breath to realize that not everybody understands that or has that. So that's some of the challenging parts. And Miami is a very, very large melting pot of cultures. So you have to sort of understand that every aspect could be looked at differently just from a culture point of view. So it's that aspect of it is challenging at times and sort of managing that and dealing with all the personalities.
Well, Miami, I mean, I know you say it all the time, but everybody always, the nickname is even outside of Mike, because I hear it now, is the closest city to the United States.
Yeah, so I use that a lot. Somebody says, "Where are you from? Where do you live?" I say, I live in the closest city to the United States. So Miami is just a large melting pot. I'm born and raised in Miami, so I'm proud to say that. I haven't left. I'm not scared of it. I love the vibe, but it's a melting pot. So over the years, you learn that we have South Americans, we have Europeans, we have
Russians, everything.
Every aspect from all over the world, which is part of the vibe and excitement. But on the same side of it, there's a balance of understanding what's respectful, what's not in different cultures. Just for instance, in the Spanish languages, one word might mean something that's okay, and another culture may not be acceptable. So navigating your way through it is for myself has always been a learning experience, and I continue to learn every day with it.
Yeah, Miami's like people that don't go there or go there. I mean, you look at it way differently because people go there, they just go right into Miami, they go right to South Beach, and they're like, that place is just a party vibe. And then, which I've been there, done that, but also too is we go there and you just go in there and we're like, let's go on the water, and there's a whole nother vibe. There's like a party vibe. There's a go on the water vibe and get off the land. Like,
well, it's great for like water sports in general, right? Like surfing and kiteboarding and fishing and diving and you know, all those things.
I mean,
Naturally, our nature, Mother Nature's, it's some of the priceless. I mean, you know, kind of like what you guys hear. Sometimes you might take it for granted. Then you drive over, you know, freeway and you look off to the right and you see that beautiful view, or sitting at our sister's house coming down the street, and sometimes you realize, let's take a moment and realize what you've got. So Miami's the same thing. I think one of the aspects that I have not done is I don't take it for granted. So every morning I live on Miami Beach, not on South Beach, on the Mid Beach, but when I drive over that causeway, I realize this is it's one of a kind situation. So whether it's sunny, whether it's gloomy, it's rainy, every day has that little twist. But you know, that's sort of your motivation to, one, work for yourself and keep your own drive, and realize that, you know, you're in a great spot. So allow Mother Nature to be that positive aspect of it. And like you said, it can supply. Our surfing isn't good as California naturally, but we have beautiful paddle boarding, we have fishing, we have clear crystal waters.
The water's a hell of a lot warmer.
The water is not even that's a whole other conversation. So, but yeah, we have the Bahamas, which is real close. So, you know, Kenny's familiar, and, you know, our boat ride, you're in another country in the Bahamas, enjoying the island life. So it has tons to offer. It's absolutely.
I mean, that's why your guys' business has thrived, because people that go there, like some of the sightseeing you do is, somebody will typically, what is it? They get on a boat, they go an hour and a half, they're going to go see, what are they going to see when you take them out sightseeing?
So we call it the Millionaire's Row Cruise. Yeah. So it's, you know, the homes of the rich and famous. So we do, you know, daily, 365 days a year, probably 12, 14 hours a day. It's an hour and a half cruise, and it's narrated English and Spanish, and it takes you around all the, you know, the beautiful sights of Miami on the water, some of the surrounding islands, which is what we call Millionaire's Row, just the different developments, the skyline. You know, it's just the ever-changing views is what we call it. The wildlife, you got porpoises and the birds in the background and manatees. So it's not just a touristy. It's sometimes it's a getaway for a local, or if it's the nighttime or sunset. And that's our main sightseeing business. And then a lot of times those boats can be, you know, chartered out privately for an educational kids trip from an elementary school or something. So it does add so many different aspects of business, just that Mother Nature aspect. So
yeah, it's funny because you just mentioned they're open every day.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I mean, I know too, for you around the holidays, like we don't even get to see you during the holidays where everybody's together, because those are some of the biggest days for business.
And people are always like, why is Mike? I'm like,
yeah.
What is it? The 2 weeks from when Christmas or New Year's Eve is like crazy for like everything, huh?
It is. It's a big week, and that's where Miami and places probably just like a Los Angeles, or, you know, certain aspects around the world, is when you have that New Year's, Christmas, there's so much going on in the city. That is our big week. And growing up in this business, you know, you realize it's the holidays, and as it's, you know, as having a family, there's a balance, but, you know, this is the lifestyle. And so the week after the holidays, you're wide open and you can relax. But, you know, it's being understanding that, to me, I don't look at it as a negativity. It's the holidays. I don't label my life like that. I don't label every day like, a weekend to me is
another
day. So Monday to Saturday really doesn't have any difference in my mind. You know, I treat every day as it's life. So owning your own business, running your own business, having your own family, it's a 7-day-a-week business. It's 365 days. So I'm not a label guy day of the week. I know I got to keep a schedule, but holidays or weekends or weekdays, it's the same day for me on a calendar. Absolutely.
It's kind of similar.
That's similar. I mean, I think most of the time we don't even know when holiday. So many people look forward to this holiday or that holiday. What are you doing for Labor Day? What are you doing for Memorial Day? And I'm like, when is that? Most of the time, I don't even know.
His is crazier because it's like it's always.
But you're right with employees. That was one of the things we learned too. Is when you're used to working for yourself, you don't even notice these things, but then you have employees who need to take that time off or need paid vacations, paid holidays.
It's not their
paid
business.
all of that stuff. So that is a big shift. And dealing with personalities when they're on your payroll. I mean, I'm not sure about Florida, but California, I think the employment laws are pretty crazy and pretty strict. So you have to be really careful with all those things.
I'm sure they have similar stuff.
And what you say.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the challenge, you
Yeah.
know, and that's part of the there's two aspects of that. One is we go back to the melting pot and the culture, and some of those aspects may go away.
Yeah.
And they're actually brought up on different days because that culture doesn't celebrate the same holidays,
That's
right?
true,
Right.
huh?
Yeah.
So that's one aspect. But the other aspect is as I've grown up in the business and we've had to hire more people, that's one of the things you learn and never thinking I was going to have an HR department and now having multiple people in the HR department, you learn that hiring in the beginning is really important to educate, you know, what the job description is and what it portrays and what days does it involve and that how our business thrives around holidays and that's how our business develops revenue and grows, which means bonuses and raises. So you try to translate that to the employee to make sure that, you know, they understand that from the get-go. So
Yeah.
you try to minimize that. But human instinct is anytime it's a holiday, sometimes emotions come out, and it's not just holidays. It's the births of babies, family celebrations, and many different things that you find that you know you have to navigate through and handle with a kick glove, and trying to find that right balance of life to, you know, have employees and have employees want to work for you for a long time.
For sure. Yeah.
So let's go back. I know we're gonna go back to the business, but we're gonna go back, or we can call it way back now because we're all getting old here.
old.
Huh?
Yeah, old.
I'm saying I'm old now. So we always say we grew up in the 305, or which for most people it's Miami, but we call it the 305. And you people hear people like Rick Ross or what's his name, Miss Pitbull. There's a
Mr.
reason why we call it.
305 himself,
There's
yeah,
just a reason why we call it. I mean, it's hard to describe where you live there, but so I think with like I always remember my brother, like you, just, you know, I don't know if it was just probably how we were raised, but we were always just like on the go or hustle or doing something. Like we were always doing something, but my brother was always doing some type of business. Like he's trying to sell us candy or somebody candy at school, like always a hustle. Was your first business, technically it was the yard business, right?
Probably the yard business. But the funny note with the candy was, I think when I went to junior high, which is basically where my son is going now, 6th grade, I remember, you know, we rode our bikes back then to schools a couple miles away. And so you learned what the time limit was to ride your bike to school from home. And if mom was looking when you were going to be home and you could ride faster to the corner candy store and be back home, and she wouldn't realize that you just purchased $10, $20 in candy, and then that the next day you would be selling that in junior high. So, yeah, the candy business was fairly successful in junior high. But yeah, as far as the real business was probably the lawns.
When did you start that? What age? I can't remember.
Probably the end of junior high. I mean, because we didn't drive or anything like that, so we had to be driven on the way houses. Our dad did help us, you know, to drop off, but mostly in the neighborhood. And you know, you were there running around helping.
We had this. I don't even know why they bought this piece of shit car, like the yellow Volvo. Like this thing was in the shop. I mean,
It was pretty bad.
oh, so it was the yellow Volvo. Was the, what do you call it? Where the wagon, you open the back.
Station
I can't
wagon.
talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hatchback.
So we'd have to put the lawnmower. You know, you prop it up. You got to put the legs down, put it in there, the weed whacker, everything. We get in there and they drop Mike off to all these properties. Some were in the neighborhood. He'd be pushing the lawnmower all over. We'd go push it. I don't even know. It could be a half a mile, whatever.
Yeah.
We just push it around.
And you would help me sometimes on the weekends, and we would.
When I was younger.
When we would tow it on the bike, and you would sit on the back of the peg bars and pull the lawnmower down, and all the equipment would be, you know, towing behind it. So yeah, I mean, and I, you know,
How many yards did you have?
at one point, I think I probably had 10, 11 yards. And I do remember I was, you know, going into high school, I was able to save, you know, 15, 20,000, which
Yeah.
I thought
Wow.
was a huge deal back then.
That's big now. Even what kid do you know
'cause when
saves that much money?
What year did you enter high school? I always talk years because that's relative to dollars.
So 93, I graduated. So
my dad was not
like-
nice. They did
Yeah.
not buy him a car.
Yeah.
They're like, you buy your own car. So he got screwed. The first kid always gets screwed. Mike got screwed there.
yeah, but
So
you
he-
know the
no, but the thing
drive
is, think
was-
about 15, 20 grand. You're going. To,
Yeah, that's a
you're
lot of
going
money.
into high school now.
That's
What-
why I'm saying even today for a kid to save that much money, that's
and
a
then
lot.
No,
Yeah.
think about the relative what that can buy. I mean, he was buying a Honda Civic for 12 grand. It was
Back then,
15.
I
yeah,
don't
I mean,
remember.
they're
Yeah,
25, 30 now.
That's
But you know the flip side to it. So you say, you know, you look back, you said, well, you know, parents didn't want to buy you a car, and you know, we laugh and joke about it. But you know, the flip side to that was, well, he drove me around, and dropped me off
Yeah.
at the lawn businesses. So
which is actually more of a pain in the ass
Which-
than if he would have just bought you the
So you-
car.
you
So he
look-
was spending the time.
And you look
Yeah.
back at it now, and it, you know, he taught you lessons of life, discipline. He added to my motivation of hustle, and realizing that if you work hard, that you know you can and save, you can actually make a little money. But just the mindset of being motivated, being disciplined, and understanding that you know it's not going to be handed to you. So you know if you can get out there and start tackling it. You know, it's a big thing. And I think one of the best aspects of that was growing, being young, running this business. Back in the day, I was challenged a lot by age, and you know the respect wasn't there. You didn't. The times are a little different than the young folks now are running a lot more, and so much more successful. So being with older people and trying to sit and have a business deal and agreement, you didn't get the respect back then. So, but I had the confidence, and I think he helped that confidence just by pushing the discipline. And we laugh always. We woke up every day of the weekend and the chore list was there. It was almost just like torture.
Funny because I wake up now with a list
Yeah, well,
because of this guy. You know,
Well, our funny part was the list. No, you had to do the list. There was no.
It
ifs,
didn't
ands, or
matter if
buts.
you have yards. That has nothing to do with the list.
No, the list
Like,
was
yeah.
there, and you did the list. There was no time limit. If you wanted to do the list at midnight or you wanted to do the list first thing in the morning, you did the list and you got it done, and there was no discussions. The funny part was the list might be the same the next morning, but
Yeah.
you didn't really argue, and you just did the list. So if it meant you need to go rake the leaves under the hedge, but you already raked them yesterday, then just go pretend like you raked leaves on their hedge. So
Yeah.
you just make sure that you take it out. But those are little things that are I think they're forgotten in life a lot now. The young kids and stuff is
Yeah.
that foundation, and so it's you look back and you realize how important some of those simple things are that you were pounded into our head. Literally, it was for the better.
Yeah, because I remember Mike would do the yards on the weekends, and sometimes I wouldn't help. But the summertime, he'd be like, "You want to?" Because the summertime is when you cut the grass more often.
Every
right?
week, yeah.
So your business in the winter, it's twice a month, and it goes to once a week. So this is where you make your money. So Mike would sit down and go, "Do you want to help me with the business? 'Cause I need to count you." And I think I was 7 years old or 8, and I don't remember even pulling the thing behind the.
the bike.
No, I don't remember that. But that's why it's funny. But I remember just going there, and I mean, I could do a weed whacker. He taught me how to weed whack and edge. I mean, at 7, I could weed whack. Like I was good. Like it wasn't like just do a sloppy job. Like if I couldn't do a good job, he's like, "You're out of here." So my dad was like, when we did a yard, it was like you don't just go mow the yard.
Oh no,
It's-
you got to get the edger right. 'Cause
Oh, no,
Kenny's
no.
big about that to
It
this
wasn't-
day.
I told
That's
Dad it
what-
wasn't even the edger. It was
Yeah.
like between the gravel and the grass, there's this dirt. But that dirt's got to be perfect. So you mow the yard, you edge the yard, you blow it, and then you take the sucker and suck all this stuff out. Like it wasn't just. He's like, "You're not done yet." That's how it was. So when
Very
we were taught that,
particular, yeah.
we went to people's yards, and that's what we gave them.
Yeah.
That
Mike,
was the
so how
experience.
much percentage would you give Kenny?
It fluctuated.
I don't even know.
I don't know if that part was fair. But
What did I get? I don't even know.
this child labor, the laws were different when it's under your own house.
That's where
I
the
mean,
hustle
he got
comes
some
in.
money. He got some money. I mean, but
Enough
he
for a
had a
lollipop.
fetish with the yard or something. Because even
Right?
before 7, he had his favorite toys, if I recall, for years was a push mower, like little plastic mower, and he would literally follow Dad, the same pattern. And the motor's not doing anything. It's just making noise. He would go out there for an hour and follow the whole entire pattern of the yard behind the dad pushing mower.
I forgot.
So he
Crystal, there
would
you go.
push
I
this
can
mower
see
at a young
Harlow
kid.
doing that.
So there was something about grass back then.
No, he still has something about
Yeah,
grass.
yeah.
I'm not kidding you. If Kenny's like mad. He like when we had our house, he would get out there and just go like mow the lawn with his earbuds in.
Dude, it's a thing for us. I don't know.
Now with
Relaxation,
properties,
so- I mean,
he
I
does
still
the
do my own yard
landscaping.
to this
Yeah.
day. I mean,
He does it with our properties too.
Yeah. So I mean, we
Yeah.
have a yard guy helps with some of the mowing of it, but when it comes to all the plants and stuff that I have in my house, I go out there. It's a meditation process. I'm not sure. It's kind of like being underwater for me. So
Yeah, that was
so funny.
And then I remember, I think Mike, I know 9. I think by 9 you were 13. You were kind of like, I'm done with the yard business, and I took over some, and then I ended up having the church. So 9, I took over. I had 4 or 5 yards, I couldn't remember, and I do the church plus 4 other ones. So Mike's like, you want them, take them, and I think he gave some to the other neighbor guy that used to drive around in his mower yard. Our friend down the street, remember, he used to do them too. What was his name?
I don't
Guy in the
remember.
corner, I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember.
That was on
Dale or something.
166 or something, right in the corner. That was always interesting. 166, just that. Our yards, so where we lived in 166, all the yards are connected. So there wasn't really fences. So you can just cut streets to cut through yards. So in Miami, if you're being chased by somebody, which
Oh my
literally,
gosh.
we're not exaggerating, somebody could be trying to kidnap you. You learned how to cut and chase through yards quickly. Or if you piss somebody off, maybe
Get away quickly.
Yeah,
stealing
both
fruit out of
happened
somebody.
multiple times. Absolutely.
Stealing
So,
fruit out of people's
yeah.
yards, or stealing lumber at a construction site to build your own playhouse in the back. And your dad goes, "Where'd you get that lumber?" We just said, I think somebody gave it to us or something.
It magically appeared full sheets of plywood half a mile away from
we
the
built like
construction
a
site.
fort thing.
Yeah.
But no, that was interesting. Do you think, because people ask us this, because I think like you're an entrepreneur, Nicole we're all self-employed. None of us are corporate people. I don't think anybody else would. Do you think,
Really,
because
you can't judge it by my clothing today?
this is dressed up too, by the way.
Yeah, that's
But do you think having dad as corporate for you is kind of like for me, where you're like, yeah, I don't really see how that's a good deal, or like,
Yeah, I don't know.
In many
Honestly,
ways.
I don't know if that was for me. I think
or was it just working in the business? I mean,
Yeah.
you got
I
a
think
chance
that's
to.
more what it is. I think
Yeah.
you're working in a business and you realize one is, I think that entrepreneur mindset and the motivation sort of, there's an aspect that has in that thinking that, you want to be able to do what you do for yourself. And I think that was always an important drive I had, because I realized that the best person that motivated me was myself. I don't know if that was good or bad, but, that was a big part of it. And the politics behind corporate, sort of say, the BS, and
Yeah.
that just never was for me. There was the fake, the smoke and mirrors and all this. I'm the type of guy I want to put on the table. I want to be transparent. I want to be direct and leave your emotions at home and treat it like a business. And, and if from that aspect you can find happiness, that's great. But the corporate just never cut it for me. And the more I grew up in this world where I have to treat some of my business like corporate because of liabilities and HR,
not fun.
it's still difficult. So I think that's one of the things I explain to people is, employees, listen, it's a business. So you can respect the corporate side, but, we're not trying to be a corporation and pen you down and micromanage it. But there's aspects of law that we have to be corporate. And the other aspects are we want you to be who you are. We don't want to micromanage you as an employee. We want you to succeed and be able to do your own thinking. And so I think that's a big balance today that I still try to empower a lot of the employees. And a lot of our managers have been with us for 20, 30 years, as long as I've been in the business. So, for me, that's still a positive nature when you have 10 or 12, 15 people that have been here in today's society that long and they know they're empowered. And I think that's important.
I mean, so it's kind of funny. So where Mike works is Mike kind of every day. I don't know if you do it every day, but you kind of walk the dock, And so people don't know what I'm talking about, but what it is where Bayside is there's a market, but you come to the water and there's just all these boats lined up. So Mike's been walking. He just walks this dock. So there's fishermen that have fisher boats there that have been before I've been born, going out and taking people on day fishing trips. There's people that have charter. So when I walked there with Mike, these people have known Mike since he's 13 years old. He's been walking these docks. So they saw me. Some of these people saw me that worked for there. I was like a tiny little
You were a baby
pain in the
almost.
ass, probably.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure when that was, but yeah. The tiny part. Yeah.
No, but it
Pain in
just
the ass is still there.
it's
but yeah.
it's just like it's funny because so many people, you change, you move offices, like we moved offices, so you do see different people. Like Mike's literally been walking like the same dock for.
Yeah, I think it's important philosophy that you stay in touch. So it's walking, and if you're going to manage and understand, number one, you have to have that direct connection to you. Number two is you want to make sure that the people feel they know you. They can reach out to you. And it's not like I want every single issue or someone calling my phone, you want the departments to handle it, but I want someone to feel if they need to have a human being conversation or a concern that they can feel comfortable to talk to me. And I also believe in, it's my form of networking and understanding what's going on in my surroundings, whether it's related to me or not. I want to be a part of it. I want to understand. I want people to know who I am and if I can help them. And, it's just like in the referral business. It's the same way. It all comes back. I believe in good karma. So I think it's just that good karma.
Yeah, because we a lot of your business is referrals from a lot of different places. I mean, hotels to concierge to
an individual, to a friend.
Individual.
It's endless.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So the more you can network, the more you can be respected and just treat people like human beings. I think they're going to give you the best shot, in that referral. And it's, it's a hustle of a world. There's other people who do what I do, and there's other businesses and competitors. So any advantage you can have without passing a brown bag under the table, you're going to be ahead of the ball game.
Yeah. And do you think that walking those docks, I just use that as a term, but you being around Miami and being there since you're 13, that's an advantage when you're talking to somebody and building a relationship?
Yeah, I think the advantage is, I don't say there's any advantages. I don't think I'm smarter than anybody else. I think it's, my big thing is the three-dimensional. I think more people need to just become three-dimensional, understand your surroundings. And that's what's scary nowadays. These kids have a fast pace to get somewhere, and they're losing that potential of getting that three-dimensional. And it's my business, it's your business, it's the production business. It doesn't matter. The more you can understand the three-dimensional of it, it's just, you're going to be well-rounded. You're going to be better. You're going to be able to have your own advantages. And I think that's where the advantages come through, is understanding the bads, the effects, the positives, and everything about it.
You think everybody's just like so rushed to like have that big business or make the money, and it's not just that simple? Is that what
I think that's why we see all sorts of businesses fail, and in the restaurant world and my world, and I'm sure there's a lot of businesses that fail in the residential world. I know there's a lot of lawyers that fail in the lawyer world. Everybody thinks you become this and you turn the key, and then all you got to worry about is having bank accounts. It's not necessarily how it works. So I also tell people you just got to take a deep breath. Yeah, you got to take a second to make sure you understand what your surroundings are, what you're dealing with, because, it's important. Sometimes you're so focused that you didn't look left or right, and you didn't realize that there's, a huge hole in the road, sort of say, and it's just, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes is people just feel that they have every answer, that they're not going to learn anymore. And, we hear it every day. You're an idiot if you don't learn every day. That's just the way it works.
Well, I think it's hard, too, because a lot of people who do start businesses are maybe good at one aspect of the business. But when you start a business, there's accounting and HR and marketing and all those other things. And when it's a small business, too, you might be doing all those things or need to do all those things because you can't hire for it yet until you grow. So you really do need to learn every aspect of the business. And that's kind of what we see. It's like the carpenter that wants to now be, own his own business instead of all he does is carpentry work every day. He didn't realize that he had to bring in the business and he had to do the accounting and he had to go open the bank account and he had to form the business, like all those things that you have to do on a daily basis.
Yeah. And that's a huge part of it. And I would even take it one step farther, because let's say some of those aspects you might be able to hire somebody, right?
Right.
But it's some of those that they're not even a business foundation. It's just, personality or responding. How many times do you call somebody, you're like, to wait 2 days to get a response in this world? I left a message 3 days ago, and this morning I got a call back. And it's like, how do you, if that was my business, I'd be out of business. So,
we say that all the time.
Yeah, so,
how do these people do this?
Right. So I think that's where I say that I don't think there's secrets. Or advantages. It's just understanding what's the right way? What's professional? What do people catch on? So people may not know if your accounting's going great behind the scenes, but they're going to know if you respond, if your word's true, or you're communicating clearly. And that's the other thing I think is important, is being transparent. In my business, we are the most expensive in most cases. So you want to sell that. And what is it? And so it's selling. It's not just blowing smoke up someone's dream like a used car salesman. It's, doing what you say, responding and saying, you know what, I don't have your answer, but I want to let you know we're on it. We're gonna communicate to you tomorrow, or taking those little steps. And a lot of time people then don't care that you're the most expensive. I mean, look at San Diego, look at LA, look at Miami. I mean, we live in pricey cities. People don't mind paying for quality and good service. And I think that's another thing is you capitalize on that. Give them what they want, and it's not an issue of money. It's so I think that's important. And the same token is you give what you say. What somebody's paying for, you need to give them. You don't cut corners.
Well, and I think too, I heard somebody say this, that there's no advantage to being like the second most expensive. You either have to be the cheapest or the second most. The second cheapest. You either have to be the absolute cheapest or you have to be the most expensive, because there is an advantage to being the most expensive. I mean, you have to provide that value, and it sounds like,
because they know what, like you said, they know, okay, you're the most expensive, but they know what they're getting for it, but you got to provide that.
Yeah, I think you help portray, you want to navigate to them, so it's not like a sales pitch, but you want to explain to them why you are what you are. Why do I charge this? I mean, one of my things I tell everybody is we don't have garbage cans on our yachts. I mean, if the customer or the guest on a high-end corporate function has to go and throw something in the garbage, that's not good service.
That's not high end.
That's not high end.
Good point.
I don't want garbage cans. They're gross. They got germs, right? So it's little things like that you portray. You may go somewhere and you have a nice glass of champagne, or you go somewhere sometimes and it's not in a glass, or it's in the wrong plastic.
It's in a plastic
You're
cup.
like, what is this? So it's just simple scenarios. And restrooms, it's the same thing. You don't want garbage cans in restrooms. You need little selected things, but you have fresh hand towels. And, it's just the little things that portray who you are. And why do we have them? Because it's gross, or, it's this or whatever, I mean, so I think it's navigating the folks and understanding.
But you learn that over time, though.
Absolutely, you learn.
That's
over
what you're
time.
saying.
And you continue to learn.
Yeah.
So and tides change. I mean, some aspects, somebody's looking for, all of a sudden the red flower is more popular than a white flower. Because of why? I don't know, but you should be with the times and understand that, that's what's going on.
Do you think you learn? Do you think your customer teaches you more than anything?
Oh, 1,000%. It's getting it out of the customer and communicating and understand.
Do you think somebody that's coming to you that is a pain in the ass, they can actually be a good pain in the ass? You're like, wow, that they know what they want, they're good, but you're like, wow, I didn't think of those things that they're telling me they want. Did you ever get people like that? Or?
Sure. I think both of those. I mean, sometimes a pain in the ass also just teach you how to build what you're telling them off the bat to not even allow someone's mind to go there in the future. Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it. And I think that's where we go back to the advantages of disadvantages. It's not that somebody's smarter or of course there's better business people, but we all have a lot of the same skills. But when you can pick up on those three-dimensional aspects, you keep setting yourself apart. And I think that's important.
I think that's one of the big things too. I mean, I even think about is you might have that like pain in the ass client, but a lot of times I even think like, are they really a pain in the ass, or do I just need to step up my game? Because it's such an easy excuse to just go, oh, that guy's a pain. Like, I don't want to deal with him. Instead of going like, what is it that I could have done to keep him from even going into that scenario? And that's the one thing I nitpick at in our business a lot is, Mitch or somebody else might go, oh, that guy's just a pain. I'm like, no, or maybe you should have been more upfront about this, or maybe we need to start doing this up front. Then he won't even have to think about that.
That's what we're starting to do now more.
It's almost, for me, I like when people complain because it gives me the opportunity to improve and to be better and figure out where we need to kind of shift. And I think that's like a really big thing about being an entrepreneur too. Not everybody wants to deal with those complaints and those things, but those are the things that are going to make your business better.
Sure. And I always say, I always recommend, you ask the employee, what's the definition of a pain?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Because it's probably pretty easy to explain to them and relate it to some other aspect of life that's worse, and they don't consider that a pain.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like, why is it a pain?
Yeah.
You find the value out of it. And because like going back earlier, you said you can have a pain in the ass client, but sometimes that pain in the ass in the client is so organized that you allow it in one ear out the other, and it's not that hard. Yeah. It's easier because they're so
what they
organized.
Want. Yeah.
And then it's the same token where you could tell them like, listen, this is who we are. We're priced because we can offer what you need. And
right.
I Okay, so in 1992, okay, everybody always asks me about this, so I wanted to talk about a couple of things. In 1992, we moved, I think it was 92. Yeah, I think it was
From
right.
Miami?
I know it was 92 because right before Hurricane Andrew.
Yeah, it was probably end of
June.
91 or
Ju-
92.
Like basically,
something like
I
that,
think
yeah.
it was June of
Okay.
2000 because Hurricane Andrew, was that in August?
93 August.
Was
yeah.
it 93? Okay, so we moved from Miami to Thousand Oaks, California. So away from Mike. My dad got a job transfer or moved jobs or whatever. So that was a huge change for like our family, everything. So Mike, everybody was asking me like, why didn't Mike come and why did he go to California? And I always explain to people because in my view of that time, you were a senior in high school and then there was a business there. And I always said also the water's not warm here.
Yes.
So that was
Yeah, I don't know if I knew about the water back then.
Yeah.
But
But
So-
how did that have like an impact on just the direction of your
And also
life?
like
and
your
everything?
view of it, because
Yeah.
I've only ever heard.
I know we're
Kenny,
saying
but-
this on the podcast, but you guys can now listen, so you don't have to ask me anymore.
yeah, so yeah, I mean that's a huge topic of its own naturally.
Yeah.
But so the quick version of how it happened too, because he might as well hear that is I get sit down at a dinner room table, and basically say in a couple of weeks we're the such and such with the dad's job and this and that we're leaving to Thousand Oaks, California, in a couple of weeks. So here I am, I think probably 15 or 16. Maybe I have my driver's license. I don't even remember if I have my driver's license.
Senior year
Seniors.
is next year. No, it was summer, so I think you just finished junior, so you're going
Okay,
like senior.
so I was maybe just getting my driver's license, whatever. So that was naturally an aspect as I had, I had all my friends. I've grown up in South Florida, and here I am going into a senior year, and that's your fun year, and junior year was fun, and so
for Mike.
all those good things. And it's no secret I wasn't the A honor roll student, and I enjoyed having fun and missing school and all that good stuff. But the other aspect was, being the first child, there was like any family, there was family learning curves, and I was in a position of, you're a young male and your mind's all over the place, and I had been pretty much a terror probably for my parents from second grade on. I've been thrown out of public schools and a number of different aspects. So I was a huge challenge, and I think my relationship with my parents at that point was probably not at the top of the charts. So there was a drive in me that was a rebel. I was always a rebel. I was never scared of consequences as a kid growing up, and I just basically told them, good luck, I'm not leaving, at the dinner table. And they said that you're 15 or 16 and you don't make those choices, but you're going to California. And I said, unless you plan on tying me up in the trunk, I'm telling you right now, I'm not leaving. And that didn't go over too well.
I'm sure it didn't. I can't imagine if my kid said that to me, what I would
we
do.
walked away from the dinner table, and they told me I'm leaving, and I went to my room or whatever. I don't remember the exact details, and I don't know how it was handled internally with the parents, because I wasn't there for those discussions. But somehow the idea of me staying with my aunt and uncle came up, and I'm sure it was. I can only imagine it was very difficult for my mom, and my dad. But at that point, my relationship was a little different with my father, probably, than my mother, and I had a brother and sister that were younger and that were probably angels compared to I was, and it was a different matrix happening. So they kind of developed a idea that I would live with my aunt and uncle, and
Finish your senior year,
finish
at
my
least.
senior year.
Yeah.
And that was probably the last part of really being a family at that point. It was difficult, so you leave, your family leaves, and you're 16, and you that's it. You don't look at it then, but you look back as I got older, and I realized that was basically the end of my relationship of having a brother and sister.
Yeah.
Because, the brother and sister is now far away. You see them for a week or two. They're going to have their own lives I'll never be a part of, other than hearing about
Like
it.
visiting, like a distant
There's no
family
social
member.
media. There's no cell phones. It's a different world. I had a beeper.
That's awesome.
So there's not a lot of communication with, a younger brother and sister on a beeper. And unfortunately, healing a lot of times is being in the same room or being under the same household or being able to communicate. So being that relationship wasn't that great with my parents at that point, because I was a terror, I don't know if it ever strengthened, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We weren't able to heal some of those situations, so we were sort of
Because of
pulled
distance,
apart.
really.
Distance and time.
Yeah, it didn't help.
And it was tough. It was tough, just the transition. I don't say it was tough living it, because honestly, the senior year was tough at times when you're like maybe in a moment, but I was still radical. So senior year without
You were having
parents,
fun, enjoying your
Hurricane
life.
Andrew.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen the movie Project X, throwing parties like that every weekend because there was curfews and hot, beautiful neighborhoods where no water power. We're out for 6 months, and we just threw massive parties and had fun and never went to school. We were able to make a lot of money after Hurricane Andrew with hustling and pumping pools, and there was so much there to do as a young, physical, motivated young dude, and skipping school and making money during school it was unbelievable the money you could make. So that was contagious. And then, life comes real quick. After high school, all of a sudden you realize
You're basically an adult.
you're an adult. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Our parents were very, strict, and you were out of the house, so it wasn't like I was really getting funded, sort of say. And I learned real quick. I had to move from my aunt and uncle's house. I had to get an apartment. It was probably the worst living experience I ever had in my life at that apartment. Very low end, out in Kendall, in a terrible place. So you learn quick. And it really didn't hit me till later in life, because my relationship with my brother and sister was distant. My brother and I always had a good relationship, but it was an older brother, younger brother. It wasn't like we got to spend those quality years when he was older and more mature and was able to do other things. And unfortunately, I was pretty much a prick, older bastard.
Were you mad at your parents for moving away?
Nicole. I don't think I was mad at them.
You weren't?
No,
Okay.
no, because I chose to stay. I was smarter than that.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was pretty bad to my sister. She was not like, a scenario. So yeah, poor Nicole. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things, on top of just realizing that I didn't have a relationship with my brother and sister like a normal family. And then in life, I really realized I was a prick to my sister. And that was probably one of the biggest things that, one day I just woke up and was like, I got to try to bond this a little stronger. And life went on, and the family went through some difficulties with the whole parents getting divorced and being away and having that scene. So for me, being out here, I didn't have to experience that. So it really started making me older.
Yeah.
In the sense of you have to figure out life quicker. All of a sudden you're living paycheck to paycheck. All of a sudden, it's a different scenario. And when you have that tough day or that tough scenario, that's maybe when you thought about your family or something like that. So, it builds a little bit of, learning to be by yourself, and to this day, I'm still pretty much I don't mind being, I don't need the big crowds. I don't need all the frills. It aged me, it matured me quickly. And, it was a life changing, more you look back at it, you could do a lot of things different. I think it taught me a lot in life, taught me a lot of the values of just brothers and sisters, and not only your parents, but how important it is to have, that relationship. And you don't understand it when you're young, but when you get older, you understand it.
Yeah.
So, no, it wasn't mad. And like I said, for the first couple of years, other than just maybe a lonely day, which, wasn't that often, you're just on your own. You didn't really have a place. That was different. So you kind of bounced around, but I didn't have a place. So if I didn't go out for a holiday to California, which I only went out a couple weeks a year, I didn't celebrate holidays. I just worked. So that's kind of when that transition of the holidays and the schedule, I think that's the turning point is I didn't have those family bonding situations for years and years and years. So, from that case, you learn, and it makes you tougher, makes you all the way things. And growing up in Miami, if you don't understand the street, you get run over real quick. So
Yeah, that's for sure.
Miami is definitely a different place from, I mean, I always just compare it to here because it is kind of like that beach community and all of that, but it is so different than
There's a lot going
here.
on. It's
And
full throttle.
from a safety perspective too, it's just I mean, some of the stories that I've heard of Miami, even more recently, not when you guys were kids and there were AK-47s and, you know, bulletproof vests, but there's just been a lot of
I mean, we were kids when you know, when the drugs
and the Colombian cartel.
I didn't even understand a kid. I just thought that was normal because it happened all the time.
That was our neighborhoods where we grew up. I mean, that's all of our friends, everybody. I mean, it's still a crazy city. I mean, it's still, all that stuff still happens. It's just, you know, it's more undercover, or it's, you know, smarter, or, you know, but it's all still there. And there's always, it's not just Miami, any big city, there's going to be a safety element, and, you know, you have to respect it. And, you know, having your ear to the ground naturally is going to only make it better. But, you know, I don't think it's just Miami from the safety point of view, but you're right. Miami has a lot going on. And one of those aspects goes to the beautiful water around it. It adds to the potential of all those activities that draw that to be very accessible, from, you know, smuggling drugs or immigrants or whatever it is, which happens. It's happening right now as we're talking. You know, it's coming into Miami. So it's not uncommon. I mean, we see it every day. We know it happens.
It's just like our border here. It's just
exactly
just having the same.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, you're married. You have 2 kids. Obviously, that's a huge life changer. How, because you've got this business, and I think a lot of people that have self-employed business stuff, like, I think it's they get the business and they get married and they get the kids, and all the step of the way they're just trying to figure out work-life balance. And obviously, you know, the thing about your business is it is 365, 24/7 almost. It's not like a lot of people, their business, some of it's Monday through Friday. The weekends they get off, they go hang out with their family, they go back to work. Like sometimes, you just had the Ultra Musical Festival in town. You probably worked with 4 days, 5 days, probably worked more than you did doing anything else, 20-hour days. Like, how do you balance it all?
Well, I mean, you know, as it's a constant balance. I don't think there's a manual that's going to spell out exactly what it is. You know, I mean, the first part is I've been blessed to have a great wife that understands it. So Sheila's, you know, we knew each other in high school, and so she's always known the business I've been in. So I think she's had that mindset. I mean, naturally, like any mom or any woman, there's going to be those times where you don't understand the balance because you have children, and that's human nature. So it's constantly a juggling balance. But yeah, I think my mind and life has changed in the last couple of years, realizing that, you know, with Conrad, who's 11 now, the first couple of years, you know, they're in the baby stage, and, you know, you can tell yourself they're not going to really know if I'm working till these hours or doing this. But as he gets a little older and you realize, okay, I'm going to have to miss that, or I'm going to have to do this, there's a balance. So one is you want to try to figure out your own quality time. And 2 is, you know, you have to change your own lifestyle. So you have to learn to continue to delegate. You have to learn to continue to say, I'm just not going to be able to do that like maybe I did before. And you don't want to jeopardize what you've grown this business. But I think it's communicating to the kids, too, to understand that, you know what, I might only be here for 20 minutes while you open the presents, and then I've got to work on Christmas Day. Or I don't know if I've ever spent a New Year's Eve, you know, with my kids. Yeah. So you try to communicate it and tell them, listen, I mean, you know, to have a great life and, you know, to be able to do some good things, that we're going to have to make some of these sacrifices. But, you know, that's just a day on the calendar. We can have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and go have our own fun and celebrate Christmas. So I think if we've done a good job in our household to not give certain days and weekends this strong label that life does, that becomes challenging as a business owner when an employee comes and tell you. So we've portrayed that, but it's a balance. I mean, you know, what I do, and it's tough. So, and I still try to go on a trip here and there and have fun by myself. So, you know, it really goes back to having a good mom as far as Sheila to her kids, and having a good wife that understands that, you know, the give and takes. And, you know, I'm sure there's times where she has to turn her head and, you know, deal with it, or say something under her breath. But you got to expect that. That's human nature. But I think it's important that you don't lose sight of it, because before you know it, the 11-year-old's 16 and the 6-year-old's 10, and it's gone like that. So on top of, other factors of life with your family, you realize that you may have to make business sacrifices, or you may not be able to do that, or you may not be able to grow that part of it if you want to balance it. So, it comes down to, your own thoughts sometimes, realizing what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. So, and having kids, whether it's medical situations or whatever, that's a big variable of it too, that's constantly changing or growing or maybe getting better. So, you really got to understand every day is going to be a juggling act, and you try to put your priorities in the right places. And you try to, it's really just communicate to them what it is and how not to look at it, I think. But, it's not an easy thing. I don't think it's easy for anybody. And I think it's one of those things in life that there will never be a manual written for.
And I don't think there's ever any real balance. I mean, Kenny and I talk about that because we're like, I hate that word balance, because it's really, truly,
Just
there is
life.
no balance. You're just trying to make the right decisions and prioritize things right. And hopefully at the end of the day, you didn't screw it up too much. It's kind of I think that's one of the other things, just not to change the subject, but people talking about why other businesses fail is because I think a lot of people don't understand that when you own your own business, it is 24/7, 365. It's not like I turn my phone off at 5 o'clock and I don't think about work again until the next day at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever it is. It's constant. So there is juggling. Maybe you have your kid to take to a doctor's appointment, but you got to take this call to make sure something went wrong too. It's you have to kind of juggle those things, and there is no balance. It's just a juggling act, like you said, and sometimes balls drop, and then you got to deal with that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, some of the balances, which I'm not a big technology guy, but let's just take the cell phone. The cell phone could be positive or negative. The cell phone 100%. Could be very positive because you could be somewhere where with your family doing something and it's on silent, and you could still be productive to a certain point. But then the other side is that cell phone becomes attached to you 365 days, and then it can be looked at as a disrespect, which, walking to the airport the other day, I saw 1,000 people slunched over looking at their phones, and it reminded me how dangerous it is, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm guilty on that one.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. So a cell phone for me has allowed me to have an upper hand with the balance and managing it. Now, then it's frustrating. You think everything's good, and then you mentioned at midnight, there's a problem behind the scenes, and people don't realize, and you're on the phone, and I'm in a boating, and my liability and everything is just, it never stops. Right. So, there's moving parts and people out on the boats and waters. The liability is just endless and endless, and they're in different individuals' hands. They're not in my hands. It's different captains and different this and drinking and having fun and on and on and on. So, it's a balance.
But then there's the flip side too, that you don't have to ask somebody for time off. You don't have to request that vacation that might not get approved. So that's kind of the trade-off, I think, of the 24/7, 365 is even with us when we're traveling. I think we were in Paris answering the phone at 4 a.m. because our manager didn't answer the phone for an emergency. And it's, it's kind of irritating, but we're in freaking Paris, okay? I didn't have to ask anybody for permission. I didn't have to wait and see if it got approved. So those are the things. Or if, something happens with Harlow and I have to rush out to take her to the doctor, I don't have to go ask my boss if I can leave. So there is that kind of flip side, and it's really which do you prefer? Do you want to get off work and not have to think about it, or do you want to have your own business and create your schedule to fit your life?
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I think that for me, I
wanna
made the
create my
second
schedule.
one, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I talked about as a younger in life when we were talking earlier. I think, I realized that at a young age.
Yeah.
I was very three-dimensional as a young kid, and I realized that having a boss or, that may not be cool, or a micromanager, I myself would not be productive.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be productive. My skills and my capabilities are being a leader, and that's what it is. And so I think being tied down or feeling like you are, or maybe it could have been the best scenario, it just wasn't me. So I prefer that second route, and I've never been afraid of it. 100% to be able to dictate your own schedule and
it sounds like you were a rebel from the beginning. So you
probably
being tied down with parents, probably.
Yeah, it might have been what it did.
So I think a lot of people too that are own businesses. I think this is the one thing when they get started with business, they have the problem is like when they look at somebody like you got all these employees, just all this liability. And also too, the other thing that you talked about one time is like when we had our property management business, you're like, hey, imagine it's a pain in the ass to manage properties, but imagine taking properties that are floating on water, and then add in, oh, there's a hurricane coming and I got to move all these boats up the river. Like you deal with all this stuff and it just ebbs and flows. It doesn't matter. You can get a call now that the engine broke and there's 100 people in the middle of, you got to get them out of there. How, now that you have experience and been doing this, how do you deal with this? Because a lot of people, I think they just struggle with just dealing with problems.
Yeah. Well, it's preventative maintenance. So you can look at it, I have, from a machinery point of view, or you can look at it from an employee point of view. So however you want to define preventative maintenance, and it doesn't just mean, how do you do maintenance on an employee? Well, it's defined from the, a large scenario is what's the environment? So you have a beautiful environment in this office. That's a preventative maintenance, right? So you want somebody to come in and feel positive, right? So I think, maintaining machinery and employees and properties and the liability is one, you got to have a good team. You got to build that team that has heart and has the same mindset that, they're not on this little start and stop clicker going, oh, it's past my time, I got to leave, or, or this or that. So developing that heart within the employee to help you handle those situations is a huge thing. So you talk about hurricanes in my business is a nightmare. How do you predict the hurricane? When is it going to come? When do you shut your business down? When do you put everything away? All these employees aren't going to get paid. Their livelihoods. How are they going to have power? How are they going to have food? All of a sudden, I'm not just worrying about my business. I'm worrying about every aspect of it, right? So it's the same thing. I had an employee calling me, hey, can I borrow ice? Can I borrow this? Well, if I tell this employee I borrow ice, now am I going to have ice for 250 employees? So all of a sudden, it's this resource management. And to add to the trip part, the 2 seconds is last year, or 2 years ago in Fiji, I took my one big trip a year. Halfway through it, Hurricane Irma. I kept watching it. I was 70 miles from Fiji on an hour island. Had to get an emergency helicopter to pick me up off that, go to Fiji, buy a one-way ticket to LA.
40 hours of traveling.
40 hours of traveling to get back with like a day and a half of prepping my whole entire business for hurricanes. Granted, the team had already started it, and, stayed up for the next 50 hours as the storm came to put everything away. I remember driving home from the place in the Keys, which was the last. My personal property becomes last. That's the last I worry about. The family was sent, they got in a car.
You're literally screwing
sent to
in
Georgia.
And
I'll never forget this. I'm screwing in the last piece of wood on the Keys house. Every part of my body has cramps because I'm so dehydrated. I'm so tired because I just traveled from Fiji. The time lapse is 16 or hours behind. Yeah. I brought 2 bundles of bananas from this only 7-Eleven open or gas station in Homestead because it was all curfewed. And I hear my phone. I'm standing on the top of the ladder trying to put this piece of wood in. I'm cramping. I can't even press the drill. And I hear my phone beep. So I kind of climb down the ladder. And I know I'm so dangerous right now standing on this ladder. I'm on the top of the ladder, like way past what I should be doing safe. And I look at the text, and it's reminding anybody left in the Keys that there's not a hospital open. Every hospital has been closed and evacuating the Keys. So I read that text. I thought about my family, and I just said, you know what? Those last screws aren't getting done. I climbed down the ladder and buttoned up the rest and got in my car and just started heading back to, the mainland. And
nobody on the road.
There was not one car on the road in the Keys. So if you've ever been in the Keys, I didn't pass a car from Island Murata, which is, 70 miles to Homestead. I never passed a car. Wow. I couldn't tell you when that would ever occur any other aspect in life. Keys, this would be thousands of cars. So I remember I'm cramped up, and that was the point where that text message brought me off the ladder. I was standing on the ladder, top of the ladder, and I said, you know what, screw this house, screw everything. If that's what meant to be, I'm climbing down this ladder, I'm getting in my car. That was my call. That it's not, because if I fall off the ladder or whatever, it's not worth it. And, it's just a reminder that it took that little text message to go, get off this ladder, get in your car,
what are you thinking?
and get out of here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the part where I'm halfway through your trip, this trip I've been waiting for, and I had to sacrifice it. So it's having a good team. It's having a good plan, having plan A, having plan B, having plan C, remaining calm, and just, thinking it out ahead of time, what's going to be the scenario. And so that is probably one of our strongest aspects of our business is preventative maintenance, whether it's employees, properties, machineries, because in our business, we're 365 days. It hurts if a machine's not working for a day or week or a month. That is something that I've grown up is unacceptable in our business. And I continue to portray that if there's a boat down or there's a machinery, it's all hands on deck.
You're
to
on
make
there.
sure
You're
that we're
working
going to
it.
get it. If I have to be on there to change a motor or whatever
Almost
it is,
cut his finger off.
you're on there and you're doing it. So,
Yeah.
and of course it's having the resources and this and that, but that's a huge part of just the pre-planning, having a great team. And it goes back to the three-dimensional I like to talk about is just thinking about, okay, well, maybe the employees, let's not turn off the ice machines. Let's let them run until the storm turns them off, because all that ice could be used up to the last second by those employees. Just little things like that you realize it's not just this, it's that. So it's a big part of my business.
So let's do our rapid fire questions, because I know we got to start wrapping this up. What's the number one piece of advice you'd give somebody starting out a business? I'm sure you get it asked all the time.
I would say, is do your due diligence. Do your due diligence.
Yeah. That's good.
That's what a lot of people say
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
business,
Yeah.
of like if you're going to buy the business or start a business, no.
Research it, understand it, go be a customer, go visit it. Who's your
Yeah.
competitor? Do your due diligence. Not just a paper business model that says you're going to make $10 at every hour at this, but go shop your customer, go be that customer every which way and understand it. Yeah, I think and there's never enough due diligence.
What's the number one problem you deal with in your business?
Human resources.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
Everybody tells us
it's a tough element is the human resources.
Everybody says that. Why do you think people fail in business? I didn't mention this.
One is, well, it goes back to the lack of due diligence, but I would also say that a lot of people they're cocky. They think they've got to figure it out, or they look over and say, that business is, I could do this, like, all I need is a, blue tennis shoes, and these guys are wearing yellow tennis shoes, and it's a done deal. But, and it correlates with not doing your due diligence.
Yeah.
And you have to put up with that because you have competition come in, they'll do stuff for cheap, and you're like, and they're not going to make it, but you still have to deal with that.
I don't know if enough owners nowadays put themselves in the perspective of their own customer. I think that's a big part of failure.
Yeah.
That's a good
I
point.
agree.
What's the best part of your business?
The best part of the business is the morning walk, being myself. That you talked about walking the dock. It's that walk through just. You just realize what you're a part of. You realize what's grown, and then you just realize that you're still hands-on.
I'm going to add a question in. What's the best, ready for this one? What's the best high school prank you did? There's a couple good ones.
in this
Yeah. I know there's a couple.
There's a couple, but there's a couple. I probably won't go to the one you want me to go to, but the four legs. But the other one, one of my favorites was was the magnitude of it. We did quite a few, but the high school had three large parking lots. Maybe a couple 300-400 cars in each parking lot, and at each parking spot you have the concrete block curb where it marks where you stop. So we got about 40, 50 guys and like 10 pickup trucks and 40 crowbars, and we met at the high school around 2 a.m. and we pried up each stone. There's a piece of rebar that they go over. So we pried them up over the rebar, put them in the truck, and we built our own curb cabin, sort of say, as 3-4 stories high in front of each gate. So each concrete piece might weigh 100 pounds or whatever it is. So we would took 2 and 2 and 2 and stacked it to where Tetris until it was about 3 or 4 stories high with ladders and trucks and box trucks and all the guys. And we did that in front of each gate. So what that did was, in the morning, the school was closed down. So the teacher's parking lot was closed and all the kids' parking lots were closed. And we knew that we had 40 or 50 guys to do this, young high school guys. There's like 2 or 3 maintenance guys and like 2 or 3 male principals. And it's not necessarily a female can't do it, but it's a lot of going on, right? So it's 5 or 6 people versus 40 or 50. It's going to be a shit show in the morning. So this was like one of the mornings where every rebel and every student was on time early, like wanting to go to school because we had to see the reaction. So even though we were up at 2, everybody was there on time, which I don't know if that ever happened for me any other day of the week, but that was probably one of the best because school was just shut down. It was total chaos. They didn't know what they could do.
Did you guys get caught?
We never got caught. I was put in front of a panel and tried to be threatened on a whole bunch of different pranks that I was going to be suspended and all this good stuff. But I learned a long time ago. You don't admit it and look good. And I kept smiling and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And they couldn't really prove anything. So. And I think our mom can contribute to my graduation. I probably had the most handshakes on stage that they were very happy I was not part of that high school anymore. So I don't think they wanted me there another year.
Yeah. What's the biggest fish you've speared or caught, or what's your probably favorite catcher?
Get into that. Yeah.
No, I know, but what's your favorite fish probably to spear?
So spearfishing, yes, that's one of my passions and hobbies. Probably a swordfish or something like that. Maybe some tunas. Nothing too crazy. I mean, my friends have probably have a lot larger, but 200-pound tunas and maybe a swordfish somewhere around there, but nothing too crazy. I've been a part of a lot of big fish, but
how long have you been fishing for?
I'd say fishing, I've grown up my whole life. As a kid, I think I loved fishing in canals and stuff. We used to go with that and stuff. So I think fishing and just being a part of the water has been since I can remember as young as I could remember, yeah.
And then spearfishing is
Spearfishing, I was more like, probably right into the junior high. I had a little taste, and then high school, I had a lot more taste, and then it just blew up from there. I realized that was more of my passion.
You guys prefer to fish, free dive than fish now almost.
I prefer, absolutely be under the water.
Chase and kill.
Yeah, I'm like,
I mean, you really
somebody's got to eat fish.
You're seriously downplaying this whole spearfishing thing,
It is fun.
Oh, no big deal. Just like a 200-pound fish.
No,
there.
but that's
I could
years
barely
of
catch a
trying.
10-pound
But
fish.
once again,
I've never been fishing.
But once again, it's practice. Experience.
Yeah, once again, I'm not, like I said, I'm part of it. So if I'm just part of the experience and that, I'm cool with it. So I think my friends can tell you that.
And I have to say one thing about spearfishing for the last question. It's actually, I didn't really even pay attention to this, but until the last maybe few times I've been or before that, is actually, it's a really good teamwork sport, because when you spear a fish, when you're not, this isn't tank dive or they're not on a rope. It's like the
A lot of
Hawaiian
times you have
swing
sharks
coast.
around and
No,
things.
not even that. A fish in the Bahamas can go into the rock. You're not a fish. You can't just go down there and hold your breath for 9 hours. So people work the fish and get it out. It's like it becomes more of like a teamwork. It's kind of fun.
It can be, yeah. And I think we do it to an element where we push it to that element where you got to have some good team members and you can trust, because like Crystal said, I mean, there is wildlife that may want to consume you, but also it's the safety aspect. I mean, you're on one breath and you want to make sure that somebody's adrenaline doesn't overtake their mindset that they need to breathe. So I mean, it's absolutely from the safety side to a teamwork side, and I think that's what we've learned to make it fun, that people can go do it by themselves, but I think part of our passion is made that sport to where it's teamwork and target big fish, target tough areas, lots of current, dirty water, whatever that might be, that adds that element of teamwork.
And aren't you guys using these like old school sling
Well,
things,
Bahamas is
or...
that you cannot use a spear gun, so you have to use a pole spear and a Hawaiian sling, which is what our passion is, which is what we've grown
It's
up
harder,
with. It's
but
not
that's the
spear
fun,
guns.
yeah.
Blue water's the spear guns, which we do, but the passion is doing, it's sort of like a bow and arrow underwater. So yeah, it's pretty fun. You have to shoot the fish and chase the fish, so it's pretty cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah. What's your why? And I ask everybody this question. What I mean, what's your why is why I think is why do you get up and like
Do what you do.
do what you do, hustle every day?
Oh man, I think for me it's just being part of a great moving machine. I'm exposed to so many different crazy sides that don't even really take a celebrity side. Like I'm not a person. I could care less, and we're around them all the time and constantly. But it's just being part of a successful machine that I feel I've been a big part of growing. And every day I know there's like that potential of another great thing because you're rolling in that direction, and you never know when the phone's going to ring and say, hey, can you do a ferry service for 5 days for this festival or this? And it could be this huge contract that just boom, it pops up on your phone because of that scenario, and you shouldn't even be surprised. That's just how it works. So I think being blessed and being part of that growing machine that I was a big part of, I think that's part of the motivation waking up.
Is there anything next to your business? I know some of the things you're getting more and more, like you just said, more opportunities for just bigger events and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's finding those different avenues. I mean, South Florida is still way, way behind on the water taxi scene. Like if you travel,
New York, even,
New York, and I mean Seattle, Washington. I mean, there's just they've taken it to new levels. I mean, people's lives revolve around using water taxis, and it's a huge, huge business, billions and billions of dollars. People don't realize, but South Florida has just been so far behind, and so that's something that's on the horizon. And it's also just Miami is a vibe. Miami's 365, so it's if you run the right business and aspect, people want to come from all over the world to party on a yacht. If they're having a week convention.
It's kind of the dream, right? I mean,
well, and nowadays nobody wants to stay in a hotel ballroom for 5 nights.
Yeah.
That's how it used to be,
Right.
Back in the day. But maybe one night the Fontainebleau, and then it's like, hey, this is Miami. I mean, we want to go out
Be
and
on the water.
experience, right? Or water, or Wynwood, or there's so many cool venues, rooftop and the wharfs. I mean, so I think just being a part of that vibe, and then it's like anything, you become part of that inner circle of a good team, and it's motivating.
Yeah, we had a girl on, was it last week?
Who was it?
Yeah, Angela.
Angela. So people are coming here with conventions or business or companies, and she says, they're here for 2 or 3 days, and they're like, yeah, we just don't want to go to dinner and drink cocktails and do this every day. So what they're doing now is they're like, we're in San Diego.
She curates experiences for them.
We want to go do yoga on the beach. We want to go do a hike. We want to go 40 or 50 of us want to go kayak or this. So she's doing all this event planning for all these type of things because people want a different experience.
So that's what my business is. I'm the person she's calling to help provide that. So Miami, it's very similar. It could be fishing, golf, yoga.
Mm-hmm. Do they do yoga ever in your boats?
A beer tour. It's endless what they do. It's
that should be a good idea. Yoga on his boat
On a yacht. Sounds amazing.
It might.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for doing this. I'm like,
Absolutely.
I was kind of surprised when you agreed to.
I know.
So I was like,
I
ooh,
figured he
he's
wouldn't
showing
expect
up.
it. So yeah.
That was awesome. Hopefully everybody enjoys it.